Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be running our JavaScript code on our actual laptop. So if you remember in our last video we were running our JavaScript using Google Chrome. We went to a website and the website allowed us to run our JavaScript code. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to go and we're going to download some software, and with this software it'll allow us to write our JavaScript code on our computer, and then we can run that code on our computer. So previously we had to go and use Google Chrome, so we needed an internet connection, and if we didn't have an internet connection we weren't able to program our JavaScript code. Now if you want, you can skip this video and you'll be able to follow on with the rest of this course by using JSBin and typing in all the code that you'll see me typing in for the rest of these videos. But if you want to go and use an IDE, you can follow along with this video. There's a lot of benefits to using an IDE. So along with being able to run your programs offline when you don't have an internet connection, it's also good for when you want to save programs. So if you notice, if you go back into JSBin, or if I go back into JSBin now, you'll see the progress that I had the last time will now be gone. So if I go into JSBin and I go into the same link as before, you can see that I'm given this default display that I was given last time. Remember we had to close down out of HTML and open up the JavaScript, but you can see when I do this that all my progress is gone. So that's why we have a little bit of an issue with JSBin. If you want to save your JavaScript code every time you use JSBin, you're going to have to go and copy all the text that you, like if you had something like console.log and then you had Ryan. If I wanted to save this, I would have to copy all this text, and it's okay because in this case it's only one line of code. But you can imagine in the future when you have multiple lines of code, you'd have to copy all them lines of code and you'd have to put them into like somewhere on your computer. So you'd have to open up like a Word, like a Microsoft Word document or like a text document or something like that, and you'd have to paste it in there and save it. That can be quite difficult, and especially as you build multiple different programs, it can be quite difficult to keep track of all of them. So a much easier solution is to use a text editor or an IDE. So in this case, what we're going to use is called Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio Code allows us to write all the JavaScript code we want. We can then save it. It'll be saved on our machine, and next time we go and open up Visual Studio Code, which is a software, our code that we were working on previous is there, and we can just start making changes to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our web browser. So, and I'm going to type in Visual Studio Code. So if we type in Visual Studio Code and we hit enter, you can see at the very top you should get the Visual Studio Code link. If not, go to this address here, so code.visualstudio.com, and then we're going to click on this. Now what we want to do is we want to download this software. So depending on what operating system you're using, I'm going to hit this download button here and it's going to give us some options. So you can see we have three different operating systems. We have Windows, we have Linux, and we have Mac. Now If you don't know what operating system you're using, you're more than likely using Windows. Over 90% of people that use a computer use Windows, okay? So it doesn't matter if you have Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, it'll all work by downloading this. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is there's two different options for Windows machines. So if you have if you've bought your laptop in the last maybe 8 years or so, it's more than likely a 64-bit machine. Most of the machines are 64-bit. If your laptop is over 10 years old or your computer's over 10 years old, it may possibly be a 32-bit computer. Now, one way of checking this, and a quick way of checking this, is if we go to the search bar. So some of you might have a search bar here. You can also hit this little Windows icon and a search bar will come up, and what we need to go to is control panel. It's called control panel. So you can see there, control panel. This is the one that we're going to go to, and when we open this up, we'll see some options. Okay, so what we need to go to is we want to find out information on the computer, so on our system. So we're going to go to system and security, and then after we've gone to system and security, we want to go to system. So when we go to system, it's going to give us some information on our computer. So we can see some information like the RAM and the processor and things like this, but we're not interested in all this information now. We want to go and see what type the system is. So we can see here for system type, we can see it's a 64-bit operating system with a 64-bit based processor. So that's the information we wanted. We want to know if it's a 64-bit machine or a 32-bit machine. In this case, it's 64, and for most of you, it'll be a 64-bit. So what we're going to do is, then below this, there's another 3 options. So the easiest option to pick is this first one here, because it's an installer. So basically it guides you through the whole installation process of the software. You kind of only have to go through and keep clicking next, while the other ones might be a little bit more complicated. So we're going to click on the 64-bit, and now we can see down here, and I'm going to double click this here to open it. As I was saying, this software that we're using is free, so anyone can download it. The reason why I'm picking Visual Studio Code over some of the other ones are some other ones you have to pay for, and I think as far as the free IDEs go, I think that Visual Studio Code is one of the best. So we can see here there's some terms and conditions. We're going to have to accept these if we want to continue. So we click next. Now what's happening here is we're choosing a location on our laptop where we want to download the Visual Studio software. Okay, so this isn't like super crucial for you to understand. You can just follow along with me by clicking next. You've got some options here, like if you want to create a desktop icon, like for example, if you want, you can untick it if you want and leave everything else as default. So this is just confirming all the information that we've done. So now the installation is taking place. It shouldn't take very long. Another thing I like about Visual Studio Code over some of the other IDEs, along with it being free, it's quite lightweight. And what I mean by lightweight is if you have a computer that is a little bit old, or a computer that isn't very powerful, maybe it was bought and it was quite cheap, when you download some of the other software, it can be quite hard on the machine or the computer. And what I mean by that is it can be quite slow to load up, and it can be quite slow to run your JavaScript programs. But with this, It's quite lightweight, as I said, so it's quite usable even on laptops and computers that don't have really good specs. So we're finished this now, so we can tick this to launch Visual Studio Code straight after we finished. So we want to open up Visual Studio Code, so we're going to click, we're going to leave that box ticked, and we no longer need our web browser, so we're going to close down out of that, and we can see that it has opened up here. Okay, so this is our Visual Studio Code software. So this stuff mightn't pop up for you. This is because I had previously installed Visual Studio Code. So what you'll see is probably something a little bit more like this. So if I go to File, if you go to File and then you go to Open Folder, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder that we can go and do all our JavaScript code in. So you can call the folder whatever you want, but if you right click inside here, this menu here will pop up, and if you go down to New, and then after New you go up to Folder here, this will create a new folder. And now we're going to pick a name for the folder. So you can pick whatever you want, but I'm going to pick JavaScript because I think it's a good name. So after we have selected our JavaScript name, we're going to click on our JavaScript folder, and then we're going to select that folder. So this is just asking me, do I want to save my information? This won't happen for you, so you don't have to worry about this menu popping up. I'm going to save all of them. So now what you're going to see is basically this welcome screen here, right? This is what all you guys should see. So we can close down out of this because we're not really interested in what it has to offer. We'll be going through all the information in this course. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a brand new file. So anytime that we want to create a program that contains JavaScript, we need to create a file to program and run our JavaScript. So on this little thing here that looks like a page with a plus, this is how we create a new file. So we're going to create a new file, and we're going to just call it let's say Hello World, okay? Because that's one of the first programs that we wrote using our JS bin software. So we'll say Hello World, okay? And along with Hello World, that's a good name for our file. But what we need to do is we need to put an extension, it's called. And an extension is just a file type. So there's loads of different types of files. So this type of file that we're creating is going to be called a JavaScript file. So the extension for a JavaScript file is .js. So .js. If we put anything else, like if we put dot or y at the end of this, it doesn't make any sense. The computer doesn't know what type of file an OR file is. There's no such thing as an OR file. There's an OR file, but there's no such thing as an OR file. So we need to type in .js so the computer knows that this is a JavaScript file that we want to use. And then we're just going to hit our enter button. So we're going to hit enter. And now we can see that we've created a JavaScript file, and what we're going to do in this, similar to what we've done in our previous video, we're going to do our Hello World program. So how do we do that program again? So if you remember, we used console.log, and then we put Hello World in quotation marks. So if we do console.log, and then we do our opening brackets, and then we do our quotations, and then we do Hello World, So now we can see that this should run. This looks like, if we put this into JS bin, it looks like it would print out hello world. So how do we do that in Visual Studio? So what we need to do is we need to go up and we need to press this run button, and after we press run, we're going to run without debugging. Okay, that's what we're going to do. And when we do this, we can see on the bottom of the screen here, hello world pops up. So this program actually worked. And again, to go and change this, just to make sure that we can make edits, we can put in our name here. So my name is Ryan. So I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to click run. I'm going to go run without debugging. And we should see hello Ryan. Brilliant. So that's our software installed on our machine. And we have wrote two basic programs. And in the next video, we're going to get started in some more complicated programs.